I'm Earnestine Gilbert. And I just want to talk a little bit about growing up in Birmingham, Alabama. But before I get to that, I'll tell you, I have a son and a daughter, a son-in-law, a daughter-in-law, and 7 grandkids here in O'Fallon. I'm retired military after 20 years, have traveled extensively other countries, been here at Scott since 86. So I was here, have been here more than half of my career. So I'm a widow. My husband was a prior elder here. He passed away almost 7 years ago. But I'm so glad to be here, so glad to have been asked. Grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, was born there. I have 5 siblings, all of them older than me except for one. My dad worked for U.S. Steel. My mom was domestic. And I went to elementary school, which the school was just one door from my house. And that's before we had junior high or middle school. So I went there for 8 years, then went to high school. The high school that I went to, which would have been in 68, was a distance from where I live, because at that time they had not started forced busing. So went to high school for 2 years there. And at my junior year, that's when I was forced to go to a predominantly white school. And that was, of course, it was different, but I embraced it a lot better than my classmates did. So I enjoyed the classes, the teachers. I can only think of one incident that we had that was race-related, and that was pep rallies. Pep rallies were in the gym before games, and they were used, that school, which was Banks High, they were used to playing Dixie. And they played it the first time after we got there. And we met, me and my Black friends, classmates, and we said, that's not gonna go over well. And so we said, okay, what are we gonna do? We asked them to not play that anymore, but it was part of their tradition. So they played it again, and that time we met and we says, okay, if they do it a third time, we're going to get up orderly and just leave. And we did. And there was no fighting, no bickering, no talking, no screaming. We just left school early, and they didn't play Dixie anymore after that. But I enjoyed going to Banks. I really did. I still have friends there that don't look like me. Very good friends. It was just a gym. And after going there, I married my husband a year after graduating from there. He was already active duty military. So we moved. Our first base was Myrtle Beach. Great place to be for your first time in the military. So we were there, then went on to Okinawa after that. And that's where my daughter was born. And my son was born after that when we got to Delaware. And so with their upbringing, all they knew were kids. They didn't know colors, they didn't know ethnicities, they just knew kids. And so that's when the Lord was using us to raise them for what He has them to do today. And so then after going to England and Hampton, Virginia, which was Langley Air Force Base, we of course ended here, and we stayed here, and that's not the end, that's the beginning of the story. And so now I look back and I see how God ordered our steps to get us where he wanted us to be. And with everything that happened growing up in Birmingham, no, it wasn't always good. I would say my parents protected me from a lot of it. The major things that I do remember there was the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church, where the 4 girls got killed, and we were the same age, and I was in Sunday school the same Sunday morning they were, and that was scary. That was truly scary. But that was part of the race issues. The other, I remember several things. I remember doing an essay on Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail. And just because he wrote the letter, he didn't initiate it. A letter was written to him and he was replying to that letter. But just so much happened. The riots, where you see in the black and white films where they're spraying the men with fire hoses, and the German shepherds, the dogs are put on them. All of that happened, and it was right there, where I grew up. So I said I had to go back and get that, because that's a part of where we were going, where God was taking us. And I just thank him for using us and preparing us. It wasn't pleasant. Race issues and violence is not pleasant. It's still not pleasant, and it still has not stopped. But that's where we are now. And as I go on and talk about this, it is, you would think that after all these years that things would be better, or you would not still see people killed for what we can see as no good reason for that. But race is complex, and it's a hard subject. If you study in Ephesians, where God talks about love, and he wants us to love him first. He gives us grace to reach for him first, and then we can reach horizontally and love everyone else. But we seem to have a hard time with that, not just us as a black race, but all races. We have a hard time with that. But the church plays a good role in getting us directed to where we should be. Church for me growing up, it was such a big part of our lives. This is our week. Our Sunday looked like this. Sunday school, morning worship, BTU, which stands for Baptist Training Union. That was Sundays at 5. During the summer, vacation Bible school. So the church was our other home. Just like I see Cornerstone is our other home, our other family. And with all of my mom, I would have to say my mom and my dad protected me and shielded us from a lot of what's going on. Remember, we didn't have TV, or if we did, it was black and white, Amos and Andy, Beverly Hillbillies, that kind of thing. So we didn't have the media. We didn't have any of that. So we were shielded from that a lot. And I just feel like the Lord had me in his hands, and he did not want me to be so afraid that I was angry, that I wanted to riot. None of that ever came into my mind, because I feel like he knew where he was taking me. If I had started off angry about all that, it would have influenced eventually my kids. But yeah, growing up there, I can't say I was really afraid because my parents protected me from it, and it was a part of life because that's all I saw through the 60s, early 70s. That was it. Being in the military, there's so many different people. There's no, we weren't prejudiced against each other. If, we just weren't. So that just helped to mold me. And then whenever we moved to a different location, church was always the first thing we got before we got a house, because we knew church was that important. And we were always in the church, always serving, whether it was singing, usher, children's church, teaching in Vacation Bible School, Sunday school. That was just our life. And it helped us to stay focused on that and not on everything else that was going on. Yes, it was painful. Yes, people died, but we knew there was a God. I'm praying for ongoing communication. I'm praying that it won't be like all the other instances, all the young men or ladies who have passed, and especially with George Floyd, that it's not a pivotal moment that they thrust us out there and we do this, and this, and then we go home. I want us to have that momentum. I want Cornerstone to be a catalyst, that this is what we're going to do. We're going to have communications. We're going to invite people in. We're going to talk about history. We're going to talk about church history, Black church history, and all of it. And just reaching back and doing what we're supposed to do as the church, as the Word of God, because the Word gives us direction. I feel we have a role to play. If the church doesn't do it, no other agency will.